Good afternoon, I'm Helena Cabeleira from the University of Lisbon. My presentation here will be about spoken pictures, rescued memories, and I will be showing you some of the research materials I've been working with for the past year as I try to build an audiovisual archive of memories and memorabilia of rural education in Portugal. I would like to start by underlining that this paper is closely related to the one entitled History of Education Seen from the Grassroots, presented by Ana Isabel Madeira and myself in the main sessions of this conference, where we discuss the general aims and research axes of the project Memórias Resgatadas, MRIR. Therefore, these two papers should be viewed in articulation. Today, I will be focusing on the first axe of the project, which is dedicated to memory and namely to the building of a living archive of oral and visual histories of education in the Portuguese region of Pinhal Interior Sul. This audiovisual archive is currently under construction and most of its contents will be published in our website until April 2022. My interest in the visual, not only as a source but also as an object of educational research, is strongly rooted in my own academic background in the visual arts, but also in my previous writings on visual methodologies and the uses of images and iconography in the history of education. More recently, I've been exploring the epistemological potential of audiovisual archives in documenting research processes in which history, sociology, and ethnography merge in order to deal with objects such as life histories, memories of schooling, and immaterial heritage of education. I won't have the time and conditions right now to go further into this discussion, but I can say that my theoretical and methodological approach to these objects and empirical materials is backed up by an immense body of literature that in the past 20 years has emerged from different disciplinary fields such as literary theory, cultural studies, visual anthropology, art history, and visual culture. I'm particularly in depth with a group of educational researchers who, since the year 2000 and the publication of the Pedagogica Histórica seminal special issue, The Challenge of the Visual in the History of Education, have been producing substantial historiographical reflection on how images can be approached in the field of educational history. I share with many of these visual historians of education, as much as I owe them, the understanding and the conviction that words and pictures are complex things, as are the relationships between the sayable and the visible that produce history as a discourse of knowledge. Jean-Paul Sartre once said that one can never learn from an image what one does not know already. That can be true most of the times. However, what I would like to highlight here is the potential of images to produce unexpected encounters of different times in the same space. The performity and plasticity of images gains its full potency when connected to individual places of memory and forgetting. In other words, both the plasticity and complexity of images lies within their epistemological capacity to produce, namely to the mechanism of montage, new meanings and new lines of thought through which the image itself becomes a theoretical object, a thing that thinks, to use an expression of Didi Huberman. I would say that the power of images in educational research is precisely their capacity to challenge what we think we know about what we see or have been taught to see. I would even risk to say that the problem and the paradox of the visual is that it constantly demands our time and attention in a hyper-visual world which increasingly pressures us to keep moving on without looking backwards, compelling us to look fast and to forget faster. Visual thinking, on the other hand, demands some degree of slowness. It demands constant revision and reappraisal through the continuous exercise of excavation of the pictorial and spoken layers that make up the visual in our cultures. I tend to agree with Inês Dussel and Karim Priem when they say that the methodological renewal of the visual history of education is a renewal that treats images as complex sources and objects, that incorporates a richer theoretical and heuristic framework to think with and about images. As a researcher engaged in the visual history of education, I'm interested in the theory of images as much as in their social biography. My fascination with visual artifacts is therefore both hermeneutic and ontological. Working with and on images in the history of education is to lose in order to find ourselves at the crossroads and intersections between visuality, materiality, and history. Through the methodologies of oral history, people are encouraged to speak with and about the images that make up their own particular archives of school memories, even when they have no concrete object or pictorial image to show or from which to speak with and about. As a matter of fact, in most regions of Pinhal Interior Sul, there is no pictorial or visual heritage of local education at all, and few people have kept any school memorabilia. Thinking with and about images is then to bring forth the question of the archive in our digital times and environments, as I wonder why and how particular visual artifacts and oral memories of school in rural contexts have survived, while others did not. It is also to pose the question of the life, death, and afterlife of certain pictures and images. Throughout time. What is the social and ultimately educational relevance of an audiovisual archive generated through a research process that is as much engaged in the ethics of producing knowledge with and about images of education and schooling in remote rural landscapes, as it is committed with keeping the knowledges and voices of the research participants alive in our collective memory? Can this archive rescue or reinforce the social and visual production of memory with and about the peoples of Pinhal Interior Sul, in their fragile, fugitive, resistant, silent, and at times painful memories of school? What is there to rescue, anyway, when all of these people's histories and lives seem today so far away from ours? These are some of the thoughts and interrogations that come to my mind when I think with and about the pictures that make up this audiovisual archive, as well as its social relevance and urgency. Thank you.